unless you know one, said Rip-Red. Gregor could feel Aries and Aurora twitching in distress. What about the bats? I'm sure you'll work that out, drawled Rip-Red. Can you walk? Gregor asked Aries. Not long, not far, said Aries. Then we'll have to carry you, said Gregor. Ride you, flyers, ride you? Asked Temp. Flyers do not ride crawlers, said Aurora edgily. Why not? They rode on you, said Gregor. He was tired of everybody being snooty to the roaches. They never complained, and they pulled their weight, and they looked after Boots. All in all, the bugs were the easiest traveling companions. The bats fluttered but didn't answer. Well, I'm not carrying you. I've already got Boots and a pack of pot roasts, and Lux and Henry can't carry you both. So if you're too good to ride on the crawlers, I guess you'd better ask Rip-Red for a lift. Do not use that tone with them, snapped Luxa. They do not sneer at the crawlers. It is the smallness of the tunnel. Flyers do not like a place they cannot spread their wings. Yeah, well, half of us haven't been having much fun flying hundreds of feet in the air either, said Gregor. He realized he was beginning to sound like a jerk. Aries and Aurora had not been mean or impatient when he and the roaches were scared of flying. Look, I know it'll be hard, but I'm sure the whole trip won't be in such small tunnels. Right, Rip-Red? Huh. Oh, surely not the whole trip, said Rip-Red, bored to pieces by the argument. Can we start, please? The war will be over before we decide our travel plans. We will ride the crawlers, said Aries shortly. Gregor helped Luxa and Henry set the bats on the roaches' backs. They had to lie face down and cling to the small, smooth shells with their claws. Gregor had to admit it looked like an uncomfortable way to travel. He tucked Boots in the backpack and picked up his share of the food. Okay, lead the way, he said to Rip-Red. Finally, Rip-Red said, and slid into the black hole of the tunnel. Henry followed next with a torch and a drawn sword. Gregor guessed he was trying to give the bats some feeling of protection. They went next, single file, on the roaches. Gregor waited for Luxa to enter the tunnel, but she shook her head. No, Overlanda, I think it best that I cover our backs. Probably, said Gregor, realizing he still didn't have a sword. He went into the tunnel, giving Boots the flashlight to hold, and Luxa brought up the rear. It was awful, cramped and airless, with some foul liquid that smelled like rotten eggs dripping from the ceiling. The bats were stiff with discomfort, but the crawlers seemed at home. Ick, said Boots, as a drop of liquid landed on Gregor's hard hat. Icky. Yeah, icky, agreed Gregor. He hoped the tunnel wasn't long. You could go crazy pretty fast in here. He turned back to check on Luxa. She didn't look happy, but she was managing. What means this icky? She asked him. Icky, yucky, gross, nasty, foul, said Gregor. Yes, that describes well the rat's land, said Luxa with a sniff. Hey, Luxa, he said, how come you were surprised when Rip-Red showed up? I mean, I don't really know the prophecy, but you do. Didn't you expect a rat? No. I thought one gnaw beside meant a rat would be tracking us, perhaps even chasing us. I never imagined he would be part of the quest, she said. Vicus said we can trust him, said Gregor. Vicus says many things, said Luxa. She sounded so angry that Gregor decided to let the conversation drop. They trudged on for a while in silence. From the periodic splashes on his face, Gregor knew that Boots must be getting wet. He tried to put his hard hat on her, but it kept slipping off. Finally, he dug out some catch cloths and tried to put them on Boots' head. The last thing they needed was for her to catch a cold. After several dismal hours, everyone was soaked and miserable. Rip-Red led them into a small cavern. The smelly water ran down along the sides of the place like rain. The bats were so stiff that Luxa and Henry had to lift them off the roaches and help them straighten out their wings. Rip-Red lifted his nose in the air and took a deep sniff. There. That has done much to conceal your odor, he said with satisfaction. You mean you just took us all this way so we'd all smell like rotten eggs? said Gregor. Quite necessary. As a pack, you were highly repugnant, said Rip Red. Gregor was too worn out to argue. He and Luxa opened up the packs and doled out food. No one felt like talking. Rip Red swallowed his lunch in a gulp and stood in the entrance to the tunnel. They were just finishing up when the bats went tense. Spin us, warned Aurora. Yes, yes. They've been on our trail almost since we started our journey. I cannot smell how many in this place with all the water. What can they want, I wonder? Rip Red flicked his tail at Luxa and Henry and gave an order. 3-point arc, you two. Luxa and Henry exchanged a look and didn't move. 3-point arc, and this is no time to test my authority, pups, growled Rip Red, baring his terrible teeth. Henry and Luxa reluctantly took places on either side of Rip Red, but back a few feet. The three formed a small arc between the rest of the party and the tunnel entrance, and the bats took positions behind them. Gregor strained his ears, but all he could hear was the water falling. Was there an army of spiders after them? He felt, as usual, unarmed and defenseless. He didn't even have a root beer this time. Everyone became motionless. Gregor could tell that Temp and Tick sensed the invaders now, too. Boots solemnly sucked on a cookie, but didn't make a sound. Gregor could see the muscles rippling in anticipation along Rip Red's broad gray back as the spinners approached. He braced himself for a wave of bloodthirsty spiders, but it never came. A large orange spider with a small brown spider on its back staggered in and collapsed on the floor. The brown one was oozing a strange blue liquid. It made a great effort to sit up. Its front legs brushed its chest as it spoke. Vicus sends us. Gnars attacked webs. Many spinners lost. We join the quest. And with that, the brown spider fell over, dead. And that's the end of chapter 20. Long one, but we'll read chapter 21 tomorrow. Hope everyone has a great day.